Hello. I received a question about how to play flute like singers, and I love this question because this is something I think about all the time. And if you talk to your friends who play all different instruments, we're all trying to emulate the voice. But between us, the flute is the closest instrument to the human voice. And so I'd like to approach this question in two ways, one from the technical standpoint and one from the expressive standpoint. And I really could talk about this for hours, so I'll try not to do that, at least not in this one video, but I could see returning to this topic more. Starting with the technique, because of just the way we produce our sound, I've learned so much from how opera singers are trained to use their bodies for the breath and for the tone production and for aspects about relaxing but also working muscles. And I'm very lucky because I get to play with some marvelous singers, including, if you want to check out on my YouTube some videos with soprano Sarah Schaefer, member of my Dolce Sueno ensemble, where you see us breathing together, for example, in Delibes' Flower Duet from Lakme, where I'm really just luxuriating in her sound and trying to mimic the way that she breathes and produces the sound as I'm playing a vocal part with her from this opera. But you can also just study a little bit opera technique in fascinating ways. So I want to recommend two books. Renee Fleming's The Inner Voice is really wonderful, and she talks a little bit about the technique of singing and then about her life as this remarkable artist. So I love that book. Also, this book by the great American bass Jerome Hines, Great Singers on Great Singing, is amazing, especially if you're an opera fan, because he interviews so many wonderful singers. And sometimes the answers are very technical in ways that we could think about as flutists. So I'm going to recommend this one as well. From an expressive standpoint, the connection with singing is very important in our repertoire. And I'll just mention a few different moments of the repertoire where we can make powerful connections with song. For example, in the Mozart repertoire for flute, and Mozart in his time was known as an opera composer, opera being considered the foremost genre when he was composing in the 18th century. And there are definite connections between, for example, the lines in Mozart concerto slow movements and opera arias. And if you think in this way, it'll be really interesting adding another layer to your interpretation. So this is from the slow movement of the D major concerto. So in the way that I am phrasing this and always spinning the air, kind of thinking of singing through the line and also shaping the line to the points in the phrase that are most important, to color those notes with vibrato, is very similar to how you might think of a great singer singing a Mozart aria. So technically on the flute, again, there's always a connection between technique and expression. On our instrument, playing with a very open throat, for example, is a great way to emulate singing. And listening to, for example, Mozart operas, if you're playing a Mozart concerto. So always listening to great vocal music is going to enhance our playing. In other parts of our repertoire of the flute, and I'm thinking of French repertoire, there's a very direct connection also with song, because composers like Fauré, Debussy, Ravel were famous for writing vocal music as well as flute music. And in the Taffanel, Gaubert, and Huet, and other French composers, that is a distinct element that we think about. And I love arranging songs from voice to flute because of this kinship that I've been talking about. For example, in my book of arrangements of Debussy songs, published over here by Theodore Presser, in studying this music, you have all of the tools for expression available on flute, but you also have the poetry that the songs were written with as another layer of expression. So, for example, in Bonsoir by Debussy, a lot of these elements of spinning the line, tone color, different timbres as Debussy would call them, and shifting the vibrato to shape the line are important. And I was also thinking that another aspect to our repertoire includes opera fantasies when we are directly emulating characters from great operas. A prime example is Francois Born's Carmen fantasy on themes from Georges Bizet's opera Carmen, one of the most beloved operas ever written. And in that piece, and I have a few videos of it on YouTube, we get to emulate all the different major characters in the opera, so you get a sort of theatrical layer added on. So I absolutely love this question, probably will return to it. Please keep all your questions and thoughts coming, and I hope you're enjoying your music.